MAGA Prince Ron DeSantis getting a legal smackdown.
A judge has ruled Florida's new congressional map drawn by Governor DeSantis as unconstitutional. The map, which targeted 2 black congressional districts, Jacksonville and Orlando, was expected to give Republicans a 20-8 advantage.
The DeSantis appointee agreed with plaintiffs, granting their injunction and suggesting the governor's map is unfair.
A DeSantis-appointed judge rejecting him, ruling his congressional map is unconstitutional because it would diminish the power of black voters. A map that was backed by MAGA Rasputin Steve Bannon.
It's DeSantis and the guys down in Florida listening. Talk to us what the map came out, and this is 100% the war room, and particularly all the great citizens down in Florida.
That guy. That's who DeSantis is kissing up to, Steve Bannon and the Ultra MAGAs. It explains his feud with Disney over the Don't Say Gay bill and his censoring math textbooks that he wrongly claims teach critical race theory. Now DeSantis is forcing Florida schools to teach lessons about the, quote, victims of communism. One critic pointing to the irony, quote, banning books, censoring schools, and cracking down on businesses that don't share their political opinion were hallmark practices of the communist regime in Cuba. Joining me now, Fernanda Mondi, Democratic pollster and MSNBC political analyst. Fernanda, we got a lot to talk about, so let's start with this map. It's set to go to the state Supreme Court. What chances of success does this have?
Well, it's the open question right now, Lisa, here in Florida. Will the state Supreme Court, which is completely controlled by Republican appointed majority, decide and overrule the lower court's ruling of this as being unconstitutional, which would, in essence, not necessarily end the question, because at that point, I think what you will see is DeSantis get this in the actual court and win and take on the actual fight he really wants, which is the Supreme Court. He wants to get this in federal court because it serves a lot of different purposes for him. Obviously, the Supreme Court, we've now seen, I think, become a very politicized court. A court that has a clear conservative majority now. If this gets into federal court, as I think DeSantis will ultimately take it if the state court rules against him, it becomes an opportunity for DeSantis, again, to take on a big fight on an issue that he is trying to tell all of Republican MAGA base that he is the champion, he is the one who will stand down any judge, any institution to do what he thinks is right for the Republican brand. And even if he loses, he gets the benefit of that in the process. So it's a very concerning development, but one that, if we're being very honest, plays right into the trap that DeSantis himself laid out when he did this in the first place. One other note, Elisa, that I think is so critical for all of us to understand, the very act of this map, I don't think is oftentimes understood. It is without precedent for a governor to overrule a legislature whose function is to design these maps, a Republican legislature, mind you, and draw his own maps. That is what DeSantis did in the first place. So it is the ultimate test of his power and is another sign of how autocratic the tendencies of this governor are.
You led me exactly where I wanted to go, because we have this map issue, but I also want to get your thoughts on the irony of DeSantis governing as he is governing and then trying to use the pain of those who have fled communism as a political motivator.
Well, I mean, it's, of course, part and parcel to what autocrats do. They will lie. They will use the jujitsu, the political jujitsu. They will take the trauma of others and kind of use it as justification to get other things in place. DeSantis is operating in the autocrat's playbook. He's very much in the Orban mode. He's very much in the Fidel Castro mode, ironically enough, who talked a wonderful game when he first took power in 1959. And then when he had total control of the island, announced his intentions as a totalitarian leader for life. So it doesn't surprise me at all that DeSantis is willing to do this Kafka-esque irony of use a day of communism when the very tactics and approaches that he is using is out of the autocrat communist totalitarian playbook.
I want to quickly ask you about one more thing. We know inflation is going to be an issue in this midterms. You have the New York Times op-ed arguing that DeSantis' recent tax cut misses the point on this. A state tax cut, just like a federal spending increase, puts money into consumers' pockets, which can actually feed the inflationary environment rather than offsetting it. DeSantis' policies are set to make inflation worse. I mean, is he once again hurting his own constituents for political gain?
Well, yes, of course he is. But he's also very smart, and he's allowing the Democrats to fall into the trap. Explaining inflation is what the Democrats keep trying to do, when this is really DeSantis exploiting the emotions around the issue. It doesn't matter whether his policy prescription is at odds. He's demagoguing the issue. And I think Democrats need to understand that that is the play that not just DeSantis, but the Republicans are doing on this issue of inflation. And if they allow that to be the defining issue, particularly when, indeed, gas prices are high, food prices are higher, it's going to be a problem, which is why it was gratifying to see President Biden just the other day make the #1 priority for his administration to lower costs. I think if it's on those terms, the Democrats can win. But don't play into the DeSantis hand of one policy prescription over the other, because it's one that's not likely to connect with most voters.
Fernando Mondi, as always, thank you. Ahead, call